The gas lamps flickered weakly along the fog-choked streets of Brackensport, their amber glow swallowed by soot and shadows. At this hour, most carriages had vanished from the cobblestones, and only the distant hum of clockwork machinery pulsed from the factories beyond the river. Eleanor Whitcomb clutched her parasol with white knuckles. She was 20 years old and dressed as a maiden aunt, cream muslin dress cinched tight at the waist, gloves buttoned high, bonnet tied neat beneath her chin. She should not have been alone. Her governess had insisted she take the carriage back from the theatre, but Eleanor had refused. She loved walking, loved the night air when it still carried traces of lilac from the gardens and not only the metallic stink of steam. But the moment her slippers touched the glistening cobbles of Ironbridge Lane, she knew she had miscalculated. The hiss of a piston cut through the fog. Eleanor froze. From the veil of shadows, a carriage emerged, but not any carriage she had seen before. Its wheels were armored with brass plates, its lamps shone with an eerie green tint, and gears ticked audibly beneath its hull. The emblem of a black serpent coiled around a gear gleamed on its side. The Whitcomb household had whispered of that emblem. They said it belonged to Lord Ashford Vane, once a noble, now a pariah. Banished from court for unspeakable experiments, he had not vanished. He had only gone underground, deeper into the heart of soot and steel. The carriage halted before her. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The door creaked open. A man stepped out. Tall, sharp in every angle, with a dark frock coat embroidered not with velvet flowers but etched with cogs and brass clasps. A monocle gleamed over one eye, but it wasn't glass, it was a mechanism, shifting as if alive. His hair was jet black, tied back neatly, his gloves polished leather. "Miss Whitcomb," he said, bowing with uncanny courtesy. His voice was velvet draped over iron. "Do step inside." Eleanor's pulse thundered. "Sir, I believe you are mistaken." "Hardly." He extended his hand, and though his manner was that of a gentleman, his eyes betrayed hunger. Not carnal alone, but hunger of possession. "Your father's debts weigh heavily. A Whitcomb daughter is worth more than coin." She turned to run. Her parasol clattered against the stones. The hiss of steam filled the air, followed by a metallic clang. Something wrapped around her waist, cold, jointed, mechanical. She gasped. From the shadows leapt not men but machines, spider-like automatons with brass legs, whirring gears, and gloved claws. They lifted her effortlessly, silencing her scream with a press of steel. Lord Vane's smile curved, neither cruel nor kind, simply inevitable. He guided her into the carriage as if she were a guest rather than a prisoner. The door shut with a metallic seal. The carriage rattled forward, leaving the foggy street behind. Eleanor pressed against the velvet seat, shaking. "You cannot do this," she whispered. "My family will come for me. They will bring the magistrates." "Your family," Lord Vane said, adjusting his mechanical monocle with a click, "sold you long before tonight. They will not come." Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, but in the depth of her heart she knew. Her father's debts had become monstrous, whispers of ruin swirling through the household for months. She had overheard the servants mutter that soon something dreadful would happen. And now here she was. The carriage rolled into the industrial quarter, where factories belched smoke into the night sky. Beyond them rose a looming structure unlike any mansion she had seen. It was half palace, half engine, spires of iron adorned with stained glass, chimneys fused with clock towers, bridges of copper running between wings. Lanterns glowed through the haze, and a great mechanical portcullis descended with a hiss as they entered. Eleanor's breath quivered. Lord Vane extended his hand once more. "Welcome to Gearhart Hall. Your new home." She refused his hand, stepping down on her own, but her legs trembled as she did. Inside, the hall shimmered with an uncanny beauty. Chandeliers of brass cogs spun slowly, shedding light through crystal prisms. The walls were lined with portraits, not painted, but engraved with intricate brass filigree. Staircases of wrought iron curled like vines, and automatons glided silently across the floor, bearing trays of wine or polishing railings. "Why am I here?" Eleanor demanded, her voice shaking between fear and fury. "What do you want of me?" Lord Vane's gaze softened, if only slightly. "A wife, Miss Whitcomb." The words struck her harder than chains. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "The world believes me exiled, ruined. Yet I have built a kingdom greater than theirs. And every kingdom requires a queen." "I will not marry you," Eleanor said, her chin high despite the tremor in her body. Vane studied her as one might study a clockwork device, admiring its design, predicting its flaws. Then, with a thin smile, he bowed. "We shall see." The days blurred into one another. Eleanor was not locked in a cell, but confined within the grand halls. She dined at long tables beneath chandeliers that whirred faintly. She walked through gardens of metal flowers that folded and bloomed at the touch of sunlight. At night, she lay awake in a canopy bed draped with silk, listening to the steady hum of machinery in the walls. And always, Lord Vane was near. He was never unkind, but neither was he gentle. He pressed her to join him at dinners, to wear gowns stitched with metallic thread, to accompany him into his laboratories where great engines pulsed with hidden power. She resisted, each word of defiance met not with punishment but with patient amusement. "You think I am a monster," he said one evening as they walked a corridor lit by gaslight. "But monsters are merely men who see farther than others dare." "You are a thief," Eleanor shot back. "You stole me." "I rescued you," he corrected softly. "Your family would have discarded you for coin. Here you are prized." Prized. The word chilled her. And yet, in stolen glances, Eleanor caught something unexpected in him. When he thought her eyes elsewhere, his expression faltered, lonely, almost fragile. When he spoke of his machines, his voice carried wonder, not cruelty. He was brilliant, yes, but burdened. One evening, she found herself gazing not at the gears and inventions, but at him. And for a flicker of a moment, she felt the treacherous pang of curiosity, even sympathy. But then came the reminder, she was not here by choice. She was his prisoner. Still, Lord Vane was patient. Too patient. Eleanor began to realize he was weaving something more dangerous than chains. He was weaving her consent. And she feared that in time, he might succeed. Eleanor's first weeks in Gerhardt Hall were a battle of will. She rose each day determined to resist, to deny him even the smallest victory. Yet the house itself betrayed her resolve. The longer she stayed, the more the place bewitched her. In the glasshouse, roses of copper stems and ruby crystal petals shimmered when touched by sunlight, releasing a faint chime instead of fragrance. In the library, books opened to reveal hidden compartments with mechanical birds that repeated phrases of poetry. Even the grand dining hall, with its engines humming softly in the walls, seemed less prison than palace. And Lord Vane. He was careful. Maddeningly careful. He did not touch her without permission. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he watched, listened, and spoke in ways that disarmed her. His words never demanded love. They simply waited for it. It was worse than cruelty. One evening, Eleanor sat across from him at the long dining table, her fork unmoved upon her plate of pheasant and stewed apples. A string quartet of automaton musicians played faintly in the corner, their violins humming with mechanical precision. "You could have any woman," she said abruptly. "Why force me?" Lord Vane set down his glass. His monocle whirred softly. "Because they would not see me." Eleanor frowned. The court saw only a villain. Society saw a madman. "But you, Miss Whitcomb. The night I first glimpsed you at the theatre, you looked upon the stage with such intensity that I thought, here is a woman who perceives, who does not merely exist, but observes." I wanted that gaze upon me. The words unsettled her. They were almost tender. And though she wanted to answer with scorn, she found herself silent. Days passed. Eleanor discovered that Gearhart Hall was not merely Vane's domain, but his world entire. The servants were not people but automatons of uncanny skill, footmen who bowed, maids who polished brass railings, all with perfect obedience. No other soul lived here. The nobleman was truly alone, save for the machines and now her. Sometimes Eleanor wandered into his laboratories. Vane allowed it. He seemed almost eager. The rooms were vast caverns of invention, piston hearts that pulsed in glass jars, airships in miniature that hovered with delicate wings, clockwork limbs suspended from hooks as if awaiting flesh. Yet amidst the grotesque brilliance, she caught glimpses of something else, a sketch of a child's face left unfinished, a diary filled with notations of loneliness, even a small music box carved by hand rather than machine. "Why build all this?" she asked one afternoon, standing beside him as he adjusted a great engine that spat sparks. His expression shifted, softened. "Because if I do not, I cease to exist. Existence is more than machines." He turned then, meeting her eyes. "Is it? If you were taken from this world, Miss Whitcomb, would your father not simply replace you with another pawn? Society reduces us all to gears in its grand machine. I would rather be the one who builds the clock." Eleanor's breath caught. For the first time, she wondered, was he truly evil? Or merely broken in a way the world refused to mend? That night, Eleanor dreamed of her family. She saw her father seated in his study, shuffling papers stained with wine. She saw her mother silent beside him, eyes downcast. Neither spoke her name. When Eleanor cried out, they did not hear. She woke with tears on her cheeks. And when she saw Lord Vane in the corridor that morning, something shifted. For the first time, she did not look at him solely as her captor. She looked at him as another soul exiled, abandoned. It frightened her more than chains ever could. The weeks turned to months. The wedding was not announced, nor celebrated. There were no witnesses save for the brass automaton priest who recited the vows in a metallic drone. Eleanor stood stiffly in her gown of ivory silk laced with copper thread, her hand cold in Vane's. When the priest demanded if she accepted, her voice trembled with silence. Vane's eyes softened. He did not squeeze her hand. He did not force her tongue. Instead, he bowed his head as though ashamed, and answered for both of them, "I do." The ceremony ended. The automaton pronounced them husband and wife. Eleanor fled to her chambers, trembling with fury and confusion. Yet beneath her rage there was something worse, relief. Because he had not demanded her consent. He had stolen her, yes, but in that moment he had chosen restraint. And she could not understand why her heart ached at that mercy. The first winter snow fell upon Gearhart Hall, dusting its iron spires white. Eleanor stood at her window, watching the flakes melt upon the brass gargoyles. Behind her, the door creaked. She turned. Lord Vane entered quietly. For once, his monocle was absent, leaving his right eye bare and vulnerable. He held something in his hand, a silver locket. "I meant to give you this sooner," he said. Eleanor accepted it warily. She opened the locket and froze. Inside was a portrait, painted not of her, but of another woman, young, fair-haired, with eyes full of sorrow. "My first wife," Vane said softly. His voice cracked on the word. "She died 10 years past. Consumption. I built all of this after her death, not because I wished for power, but because I wished to cheat loss, to craft a world where no one I loved could be taken." Eleanor's chest tightened. For the first time, the villain seemed less like a tyrant and more like a widower, haunted and desperate. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I did not mean to make you suffer. I only meant not to be alone. Silence swelled between them, heavy as snow. Eleanor should have struck him, denounced him. But instead, tears burned her eyes. Because in his loneliness, she saw a reflection of her own. Her lips parted. She whispered, "You had no right." "I know," he said. His eyes shimmered with something raw, remorse, perhaps, or love. And then, before either could speak further, the window shattered. A grappling hook tore through the glass, embedding itself in the iron frame. Eleanor screamed as masked intruders in dark leather swung into the chamber, pistols and steam rifles gleaming. "Whitcomb girl," one of them barked. "By order of the Crown, you are rescued from this villain." Lord Vane drew a pistol from beneath his coat, his face hardening into steel. Eleanor stood between them, her heart tearing in two. Rescue had come, yet for the first time she wasn't sure if she wanted it. The room erupted in chaos. The intruders fired, smoke hissing from their rifles. Gears and pistons whirred as Lord Vane's automatons burst through the doors, clashing with the men in leather masks. Brass arms swung, claws snapped, steam hissed. Eleanor pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. For months she had longed for rescue, dreamed of freedom, yet now, confronted with it, her stomach twisted with dread. "Eleanor, move!" one intruder shouted, reaching for her. His gloved hand stretched through the smoke. Before she could answer, Lord Vane fired his pistol, the shot ringing like thunder. The man collapsed, clutching his chest. Eleanor gasped. Vane's gaze snapped to her, dark and desperate. "Stay behind me." But the others advanced, grappling hooks tearing into the walls, explosives cracking gears apart. His mechanical soldiers fell one by one, brass bodies torn and shattered. The men had come prepared, not to save her, Eleanor realized with horror, but to kill him. Lord Vane turned to her, voice ragged. "Do you want to leave with them? Say the word, Eleanor, and I will let you go." The words cut her deeper than any blade. She looked to the intruders, the so-called rescuers. Their eyes, beneath their masks, were not kind. They carried chains and manacles, treating her not as a maiden in peril but as property reclaimed. And she looked back at Vane. He was a villain, yes, a thief of freedom. But in his eyes she saw no chains. Only a man who had stolen her, yet never broken her. Her lips parted, trembled, and in the end she whispered the only truth she knew. "I don't want them." Vane's eyes widened, surprise, then something deeper, like a spark of hope long dead. "Then run with me," he said. He seized her hand. Together they fled down the corridor as explosions rattled the hall. Automaton servants crumbled, gears clattering to the floor. Steam filled the air, choking and hot. They burst into the grand atrium. Eleanor's skirts caught on jagged iron, tearing as she stumbled, but Vane's arm pulled her upright. The massive gears of the portcullis clanked above them, beginning to descend. If they could reach the airship dock, perhaps, just perhaps, they might escape. But the intruders were relentless. Shots cracked, sparks flew, glass shattered. A bullet grazed Vane's side. He staggered, blood blooming through his coat. Eleanor cried out, clutching him, but he pushed her forward. "Don't stop," he gasped. "The airship, take it." "No," she shouted. "Not without you." He gave her a look then, a look she would remember for the rest of her life. A look filled with love, sorrow, and apology all at once. "I was never meant to be saved," he whispered. "But you—" The blast cut him short. A charge exploded behind them, flinging Eleanor against the railing. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. Through the haze she saw him fall, smoke curling from the wound that tore across his chest. "No!" she screamed, scrambling to his side. She pressed her hands to his wound, blood slicking her gloves. "You can't leave me, you can't." His hand found hers, trembling, cold. He managed a faint smile. Then perhaps I did not fail entirely. And with those words his breath shuddered. The monocle over his eye clicked once, twice, and fell still. Lord Ashford Vane was gone. The intruders seized Eleanor, dragging her away as Gearhart Hall burned. She kicked, screamed, clawed, but her cries were swallowed by the roar of collapsing gears. By morning, the newspapers declared her rescued. She was returned to her father's house, draped in mourning silks. They celebrated her survival, yet behind every congratulatory smile Eleanor saw only indifference. To them, she was a pawn restored to the chessboard. But to her, she was hollow. Nights stretched long in the Whitcomb estate. She lay awake listening for the hum of machinery, for footsteps that never came. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his, the last look, torn between regret and love. She remembered his words, "Say the word, and I will let you go." And she realized she had never been truly caged. Months passed. Suitors came and went, parading wealth and titles, yet Eleanor dismissed them all. None spoke with passion of inventions. None carried loneliness beneath their finery. None could match the ghost who haunted her heart. One evening, while wandering the city streets cloaked in morning black, Eleanor heard a sound that froze her blood. A chime. A faint, mechanical chime. She turned into an alley. There, half buried in snow and soot, lay a broken music box. Its gears clicked weakly, playing the same melody she had once heard in Vane's laboratory, the lullaby his lost wife had loved. Eleanor picked it up, clutching it to her chest. Tears welled in her eyes, and in that moment she understood. He was gone, yes, but he had left pieces of himself scattered across the world, gears, machines, fragments of dreams. And perhaps, just perhaps, his greatest creation had not been a machine at all. It had been her. Years later, whispers spread through Brackensport of a woman in black who walked the industrial quarters, tending to wounded factory children, repairing broken automaton toys, and studying blueprints left behind by a fallen noble. Some said she was mad. Others said she was mourning. But those who saw her closely noticed something different in her eyes, a fire, a resolve. And if you listened closely, in the hush of her workshop, you might hear the faint hum of gears turning. Not to enslave, not to dominate, but to preserve, to protect, to love. Because Eleanor Whitcomb had become the widow of a villain. And in her heart she carried both his sin and his salvation.